You ever thought about going full on carnivore? It's actually a lifestyle that has picked up more and more steam over the past few years, especially among health enthusiasts who often start out by just cutting out sugar and refined carbohydrates, but then at some point decide to go all in on meat. And on the one hand, it makes life pretty simple, right? When you're basically eating nothing but meat and butter. But is it really sustainable? And more importantly, is it actually good for you, especially long term? Well, that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Welcome to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast brought to you by Thinlicious. I'm your host, Ruth Sukup, and here we'll talk about everything from the science of weight loss to practical tips for making your health a priority in the midst of a busy life. It's a little bit nerdy, a little bit funny, and a little bit revolutionary. So buckle up, friend, because it's about to get real. Hey there, and welcome back to the Feel Better, Live Free podcast. Once again, my name is Ruth Sukup, and I'm the founder of Thinlicious and the creator of the Thin Adapted System, as well as the New York Times bestselling author of 7 books. And if this is your first time listening, then you should probably know that I am pretty much obsessed with one thing: helping women over 40 create freedom in your lives by transforming your health. I like to think of it as starting a health revolution. And to me, that's really what this podcast is all about. It's about the freedom to feel your best, the freedom to not be controlled by food addictions ever again, and the freedom to confidently pursue all of your big goals and dreams because your health and your weight issues are no longer holding you back. And if that gets you excited, then you'll probably like it here. We are health rebels, and we are not afraid to question the status quo or to do things a little differently. We're not looking for a quick fix, but a real sustainable lifestyle change that will actually work for the long haul. And if that's your goal, then you're in the right place. So thank you for listening. But the reality is that there are actually a lot of different approaches to achieving that goal of health transformation, which at its most basic level really comes down to 3 things: reversing insulin resistance, healing your gut, and balancing your hormones. If you want to be healthy, if you want to lose the excess weight, and you want to feel good and eliminate inflammation in your body and have tons of energy, that is the answer. Reverse insulin resistance, heal your gut, balance your hormones. That's it. When you do that, you will feel better. You will look better. You will be healthy. You will be radiant. Your immune system will be strong. And all that freedom I just talked about will be yours. And while traditional medicine and big pharma wants you to believe that medication is the answer to everything, the one thing that I can tell you without any hesitation is that pharmaceuticals are not the way to heal your body. Because modern medicine is not designed to heal you. It is created to manage your symptoms so that you have to keep taking medication for life. But if you actually want to reverse insulin resistance, heal your gut, and balance your hormones, the only way to do that is by changing what you eat. You have to eliminate the excess of sugar and processed crap in your diet because that is what has directly caused the problem. Our standard American diet is basically loaded with garbage and toxic chemicals and preservatives and dyes that have wreaked havoc on our health. It has caused all this rampant insulin resistance in our society, where I think 85 to 90% of the population has insulin resistance. It has destroyed our gut biomes. 90% of the population has some form of leaky gut syndrome. And that in turn has thrown all of our hormones out of whack. So the important thing to understand from that is that it is completely fixable with the right lifestyle changes. But within those lifestyle changes, there are definitely some different approaches. I guess you could almost call it like a continuum, right? There's all sort of similar trains of thought on it, but on the one side of the continuum, you have what I would call a more moderate approach, right? An approach that calls for cutting out refined sugar and processed food, but still allows for a large variety of whole foods: fruits and vegetables and dairy and meat, and even some starches like rice and potatoes and sourdough bread, at least in moderation. It's the approach that advocates for something that's known as metabolic flexibility, which really believes that our bodies are designed to eat a variety of foods, and that if you've actually healed your body, you've reversed insulin resistance, and you've healed your gut, and you've balanced your hormones, there's really no reason that you shouldn't be enjoying a diverse diet that is full of nutrient-dense whole foods and healthy fat. And if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you probably already know that this is basically my whole approach. And that is the goal of my TAS program, to help you heal your body and create metabolic flexibility so that you can ultimately enjoy a wide variety of foods, knowing that your body can handle it. And that's also why my program is split into different phases, because healing your body takes time. And at first, you have to be more strict. You have to go like all in on cutting out sugar and not having really very many carbohydrates at all, because you have to heal your body. And then as you start to heal, your body can handle more and more. And if you follow me on Instagram, you see like I do eat carbs, I eat sourdough. I've done a whole podcast episode on it, right? Because I have healed my body. I am metabolically flexible. I don't really have to worry about it so much anymore, but I still eat really, really well. And I eat to nourish my body all of the time. So that's sort of the one end of the continuum, this sort of metabolic flexibility approach. And then at the other end of this continuum is what I would probably say is the carnivore diet, right? The most extreme. It's a lifestyle where you literally eat nothing but meat and fat, and mostly animal fat, right? So like butter, lard, beef tallow. You can probably still have avocado oil and olive oil, right? Healthy fats, and maybe a few eggs. And that's it. And if that sounds really extreme, it is really extreme. But proponents of the carnivore diet make some pretty good arguments for why it's worth it. And so today I wanted to explore it a little bit more, just to weigh some of the pros and cons, to talk a little bit about my experience, and so that you can sort of decide for yourself whether going full carnivore might be an option that you'd like to try, either long-term or even short-term. But before we dive in, there are just a couple of things I'd like to mention really quickly. And the first is that if you are new to this podcast and you want to know more and understand more about how my TAS program works and whether or not it might be a good fit for you, if you're looking for a bigger solution to your health and you want to actually map out a 12-month plan for transforming your health, then I have put together a really great on-demand training video that you can go and watch. It's called Happy, Healthy, and Free, and it's really good. It's very meaty. It's very informative. It's very helpful. You get a little workbook with it that you can fill out, and you can create this plan, and it's totally free. So you can watch it by going to thinlicious.com/happy. Once again, that's thinlicious.com/happy. And of course, at the end, I'll talk about my program and explain how that works. And if you want to join it, that's really the best way to get in as well. So definitely go do that if you haven't done that already. And then the second thing I want to mention really quickly is that if you are a returning listener and you've been listening for a while and you love this podcast, then I have a huge favor to ask, because I would love it if you could leave a quick review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to listen. I love hearing your feedback. I love knowing what you think. I love knowing what you want to hear more of. So if you have a minute to do that, then I would be super grateful. Okay, so with all of that out of the way, all the little housekeeping items, let's go ahead and dive in to everything I feel like you need to know about the carnivore diet. I'm, of course, just talking from my own experience and from what I've researched and learned. I am not a medical authority, but let's just talk about it and whether you think it might be right for you. And honestly, I think if you had told me 5 years ago that I would be recording a podcast talking about whether or not you should eat nothing but meat, I probably would have laughed in your face. Because I was a vegetarian for a very, very, very long time, 28 years to be exact, before I started eating meat again. And in all that time that I wasn't eating meat, I don't think I had any idea just how devastating that plant-based diet was for my health. Really, like I look back on it and I feel so sad for that poor girl that didn't eat meat for 28 years. I was so deficient in protein and so deficient in iron and essential B vitamins. I was eating so much sugar and so many carbohydrates and so much soy, especially. And all of that was wreaking havoc on my hormones, right? The processed meat. Now, a study just came out. I saw it in the news yesterday that a study came out about how devastating these fake meat products are for people and for your health. And I was eating tons of those. And I couldn't figure out why it was so hard to lose weight, because I honestly thought that what I was eating was healthy. Everybody talks about how healthy it is to be plant-based, right? Vegetarian is healthy, vegan is healthy, but it was not. And when I started eating meat, I felt so much better, like immediately. Honestly, I joked. We went out the first day I decided to eat meat. I don't do anything small. So the first day I decided that, okay, I'm ready to start eating meat after 28 years. We were going out for dinner with our friends, and I got to pick the restaurant. And I said, I want to go to a Brazilian steakhouse, because then I'm just going to try all the meat. Basically, that's all you do, right? Is eat meat at a Brazilian steakhouse. It's one of those places where they walk around and just put meat onto your plate. And so we decided to, and they thought I was crazy, right? Because they'd only ever known me as a vegetarian. And they're like, are you sure you want to go there? I'm like, yep, I'm going to eat meat tonight. And they were waiting, right? They were waiting for me to get sick. They were waiting for me to have this like weird reaction to it. And I just felt amazing. I joked that I felt like Bella at the end of those Twilight movies. Do you ever watch those, the Twilight series, or read the books? But she wakes up at the end and she's a vampire. And then all of a sudden she's like so strong and powerful and she's throwing trees. Like that's how I felt after eating meat for the first time in 28 years. It was crazy. But after having been a vegetarian for all those years, I do have to say that I actually really like vegetables, like a lot, right? And I like a variety of foods. And I like food in general. I love to cook. If you follow me on Instagram, you know that I am constantly sharing all of the recipes that I'm developing in my own kitchen that I make for my own family. And they're healthier, more hormone-friendly versions of all my favorite things, right? I find it really fun and to challenge myself to turn like comfort food into something that's a lot healthier and something that I can feel good about, with clean ingredients and high protein and lower in carbohydrates. And I don't know if I could ever give that up, at least not long term, because I think I would be too bored. But my sister is totally different from me, right? We're opposites in every way. We're best friends, but opposites in every way. And so she does not love to cook. She has never liked to cook. She hates grocery shopping. And now she's at the point in her life where her kids are grown. So it's just her and her husband. And so when she started learning more about the carnivore diet, it really appealed to her just because it was so simple. And you go to the grocery store and you're just going to the meat section. It's really fast. It's really easy. And so a few months ago, she decided to try it, right? We talk about health stuff all the time. It's kind of hard not to be doing what I do. And she follows me on Instagram and she's been inspired by my journey and all of that and wanting to go kind of on take her own health journey. And so that's where she started researching the carnivore diet. She decided to try it. She loved it. And she started seeing huge improvements in her health, right? She lost weight. She started sleeping better. She had more energy. And I love that for her. I'm so happy for her. I'm so excited for her. And I think my program is amazing, but it might not be right for everyone, right? But I think everybody should figure out a lifestyle that works for you. And if that is what works for her, then that is such an amazing thing. But as she started diving into this carnivore world and finding people to follow online that weren't just me, right? She came across this doctor who was hosting a carnivore cruise, right? The Carnivore Doctor, I think is her name, and or her handle on Instagram. And she was hosting a carnivore cruise, like a cruise where you go on a cruise with a bunch of other people who are carnivore and they all sit together and whatever. And so she asked my husband and I to go along with her, she and her husband. And I will be honest with you, I am not a huge cruise person. I've never really been a cruise person. I get like real claustrophobic, but my husband loves cruising and he's been begging me for years now. I think the last cruise was like 6 years ago. And he's been begging me to go on another cruise. So he was all for it. And he got excited. He's like, I don't care if it's a carnivore cruise, we're going to go. And so we decided to go with them. And Now, obviously, it's a big ship, and not everyone on the ship was part of this carnivore group. So there was plenty of other food available that wasn't just carnivore. So I didn't really have to stick to it if I didn't want to, but I decided that if I was going to go, I was going to try it, right? I'm like, okay, we're going on a carnivore cruise. My sister's doing carnivore. I'm going to try it for a week, eat nothing but meat. And honestly, it was really easy to stick to because it was super simple. It eliminated all the decision fatigue, right? I didn't really have to think about, what am I going to eat, right? For breakfast every morning, I basically had the same thing. I would have 3 eggs that I would requested to have cooked in butter rather than the normal seed oils they use, right? If you go on a cruise ship, most of what they're cooking is cooked in seed oils. I know, I hate to break it to you. But you can request that things be cooked in butter. So that's what I would do. I'd have my 3 eggs. And then I would have a few pork sausage links. The first morning I tried a few other things, but didn't really like anything else. The pork sausage I felt like was the best. So the rest of the time, that was literally what I ate every single morning. And that was super filling, right? That's a big breakfast. It was a lot of calories. It was probably 1,000-calorie breakfast every morning, which is bigger than I normally eat for breakfast. And that meant for lunch, I was never really very hungry, which was actually good because honestly, the buffet lunches on this particular ship were not very appetizing. We were on Royal Caribbean. I don't know if food in general on cruise ships has gone down or if this was just a bad ship or whatever. I don't know. But the buffets never, they looked gross. I don't like buffets very much either. So maybe that was part of the problem. Buffets kind of gross me out. But anyways, even if I had been eating everything, right? If I had 0 food restrictions, I don't even know if there would have been that much that I wanted to eat. Like nothing looked good to me. And probably because I wasn't hungry either. So most days I just would do like a single burger patty. The one thing they had that was decent, that I felt was decent, was these like burgers of the day that had different, every day it was like a different theme, right? And so they had different kinds of cheese on it. One day was like a French onion burger and it was a fiesta burger. And so I would just eat the burger and the cheese with no bun, and that was super easy. So it was a pretty light lunch because, like I said, I wasn't very hungry after my gigantic breakfast. And then at dinner, I would just order the meat, right? That made it really easy too. And the cool thing about cruises is that when you go to the dinner, the dining room, that you can order as much as you want. You can order 5 entrees if you want. There's no limit to how many you can order. And so, they would usually have some appetizers that were okay. I did have a Caesar salad a couple of nights, which I guess technically isn't carnivore, but I see, I'm like, rules are for suckers, right? But they had, what is that called? The snails, the escargot. They had that a few nights and I love escargot. So that was really good. So we had escargot. We had, I think one of the nights they had, some sort of like beef. Oh, what is it called though? Like really thin beef carpaccio. That was really good. And, I would order multiple entrees every night. And so there was beef tenderloin one night. I think I ordered 3 servings of beef tenderloin that night. That was really good. Another night I had filet, and another night I had New York strip, and then they also had fish. So I think I had a few different kinds of fish, salmon and lobster, and some other kind of fish that I don't remember right now. But like I said, it was very easy. There weren't a million different choices. I was never like, oh my gosh, what am I going to eat? Right. It was just super easy. Just pick the meat and eat the meat. And it was lots of food. I was never hungry and I didn't really feel like I was missing out. But overall, I would say I felt like the food on the ship was just okay. It wasn't amazing. And maybe that's the problem with liking to cook. I really like my own food. I feel like I cook really well at home. I cook my meat really well. Like I felt like the meat on the ship was always overcooked, right? It was always like well done when you ask for it medium rare. And so I like my own food, and I was ready to come home and eat my own good food from my own kitchen again. But even though I ate a ton of food on our week-long cruise, and this is kind of the cool part, right? Like, how many times have you gone on a vacation, especially a cruise or all-inclusive or something where you get so much food all the time and you like gain 10 pounds, right? But even though I was still eating a lot of food, probably close to 3,000 or 4,000 calories a day, I didn't actually count it. But if I was to count it, that would be my estimate. It was a lot of food. I was not cutting back. But I came back, I did not gain a single pound. So just from that perspective, I think it was a win, right? Like what a great way to go on a vacation and really just eat what you want and enjoy yourself, but not gain any weight. So that was good. But I will tell you that what I did miss was vegetables and berries and sauces and flavors. I love sauce. I want sauce every day. I make a lot of my own sauces at home so that I can make sure they're really clean, but I like to have sauce. I like to have flavor. I use a lot of spices. I use tons of pepper and other flavors, right? And so it all felt kind of monotonous and very boring. And maybe for some people, I think that would be okay. My sister loves it, but I really don't think after that week was enough for me to realize that that would not be sustainable for me long term. So that is my own personal experience. But I am just one person and every body is different. And just because I have realized for myself that carnivore probably isn't the right fit for me, at least not long term, maybe once in a while for as a short-term thing, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be a good fit for you or something that you may even want to try for a while. So what exactly is carnivore? Is it eating nothing but steak all day every day? Well, honestly, that's one way to do it. But the general premise is that you are following a diet that consists mostly of animal products. So meat, poultry, fish, eggs, and some dairy. And usually with this comes a restriction on plant-based foods like vegetables and fruits. So it tends to be very high in protein, as you can imagine, often as much as 200 grams a day or more, which I guess isn't that surprising if you're eating nothing but meat. And most carnivores tend to eat a lot of animal-based fat as well. Some carnivores will even eat like sticks of butter by themselves just to get more fat. Because one of the things that you have to be careful with is that if you're eating too much protein with not enough fat, like if you're just eating a lot of really lean protein, but you're not getting enough fat, that can actually have a negative effect on your body. So you do actually want to be very high fat on a carnivore diet. I think the recommendation is like 80% fat and 20% protein or 25%. Don't quote me on that, but something around those lines. So like it's a very high percentage. But there are different variations of carnivore, right? It's a continuum. So some people might be super, super, super strict, and then other people are for a little further on the continuum where they're having certain types of vegetables or maybe some low sugar fruits in small amounts, and other people may be incorporating more bone broth and organ meats into their diet. You know, I love bone broth. I have bone broth at home every single day. I actually missed that while I was on the cruise, not having my bone broth every day. But ultimately, the goal is to eliminate processed foods and to focus on whole nutrient-dense sources of animal protein. So why would someone choose to follow a carnivore diet? Well, I mean, for all of the benefits that people talk about, right? The weight loss, improved digestion, improved gut health, increased energy levels, better sleep, even relief from certain health conditions like autoimmune disorders. And I think it's important to understand that those benefits all come ultimately from reversing insulin resistance, healing your gut, and balancing your hormones, which is what will happen when you eliminate sugar and processed food from your diet and instead focus on protein and healthy fat. But like I talk about all the time on this podcast, all of those benefits can be achieved by taking a more moderate approach, by just cutting out sugar and processed foods and focusing on a variety of whole foods, while still including lots of foods that are rich in nutrient-dense protein and healthy fat. I am not advocating for a vegetarian diet or a vegan diet, right? Like I want you to eat meat, but what I do advocate for is that you can eat meat and other things. You don't have to actually only eat nothing but meat to see those kind of results. So why would you want to take it to such an extreme? And I was really thinking about this, right? And I think going into this cruise, that was my biggest question. Like, why is carnivore better or preferable to just being, just eliminating sugar and carbs, but still eating a variety of whole foods? And from what I can tell, there are a few benefits that may come from a strictly carnivore diet. So one of the main arguments for going strict carnivore is the idea that plants contain natural toxins that can be harmful to certain people. So basically, when you are eliminating plants from your diet, then you're eliminating all plant-based toxins by default. And so these toxins like lectins, oxalates, phytates, they're essentially plants' defense mechanisms to protect themselves from being eaten. And while most people can handle these in small amounts without any issue, other people do find that they cause digestive problems, inflammation, or may even exacerbate autoimmune conditions. So, for example, those people who are sensitive to oxalates, which are found in foods like spinach or almonds or sweet potatoes, might experience joint pain or kidney stone formation. And basically, the idea is that cutting out plant-based foods entirely could alleviate those problems for those people that are having sensitivities to certain plant-based toxins. So, by removing plants from the equation, you basically give your body a chance to reset and potentially heal from years of irritation that may have been caused by those compounds. Now, does that mean that everyone is going to thrive without plants? No, not necessarily. Some people do just fine, right? I personally do just fine eating plants. I miss them when I'm not eating plants. But for some people, eliminating them might be exactly what you need to start feeling better. And again, it's all about finding what works best for your body. Another very touted benefit of the carnivore diet is that it can be much easier on digestion and gut function for some people. In fact, there are some arguments, right? Some people argue that our human digestion system is actually much more equipped to digest meat than plants, going back to like hunters and gatherers, right? They were eating mostly meat. And our body is much more, if you compare our digestive tracts to carnivores in the wild, like animals who strictly eat meat versus plant eaters in the wild, our body is much more like a carnivore body than it is like a plant eater body, the way that our digestive system works. So, I mean, and those are arguments I think that can be made pretty legitimately, because when you think about it, meat is pretty straightforward for your body to break down and to utilize, especially compared to certain fibrous or starchy plant foods. And so then for individuals with sensitive stomachs or conditions like IBS or food intolerances, cutting out anything that is hard to digest, right? Those plant fibers that are hard to digest might actually bring a lot of relief. There are people who say that their bloating and gas disappears completely once they go carnivore, right? Like no puffiness, it's flat stomach, right? All of the bloating and puffiness, the gas, no more farting, miracle pants every day, right? But the theory is that since animal protein and fat don't ferment in the gut the way that certain carbohydrates do, you're less likely to end up feeling like a human hot air balloon, pretty much. That being said, it's again important to remember that not all digestive systems are created equal, and even your digestive system might be different at different points in your healing process and in your health journey. If you are starting your health journey with a bad case of leaky gut syndrome, right? You've got all these holes in your gut, and your gut biome is a mess and nothing's working, and you have all these food sensitivities. Then as you heal, you can actually start to bring more food in. And a lot of my clients find that in our program, right? At first they can't tolerate dairy at all. They have a really hard time with certain foods. And the longer that they're in the program, the more they heal their gut, the better they feel, and the more they're able to add more of those foods in. And plus, a lot of us actually really need fiber, right? Because fiber is what's considered a prebiotic. So it's actually the thing that feeds your microbiome and feeds the probiotics and gets things going inside your gut microbiome. So it's really important. If you're going carnivore, you might actually miss out on some of that beneficial fermentation action that supports gut health. But on the other hand, if fiber has been an issue for you, carnivore might be a really good break for your body. It might be what your digestion has been craving. You just want to make sure that you're paying attention to how your body reacts, because your gut will tell you what it thinks, sometimes very loudly. So that's kind of the second reason that I could see carnivore as opposed to having a bigger variety. is easier digestion and gut function, especially if you're really trying to heal your gut or you're dealing with a lot of stuff, right? And closely related to that is going all in on carnivore to minimize food allergies and sensitivities, which again are caused by a unhealthy gut. And so the idea is that by stripping your diet down to just a few basic foods, meat, eggs, and animal-based products, it's going to be so much easier to identify and eliminate potential triggers for you. It's almost like doing like a factory reset, right? When you press the factory reset and you just start over. So if you've been struggling with skin rashes or upset stomach or random headaches that come out of nowhere, a carnivore diet might help you figure out what's been causing the drama. In fact, some people don't even realize that they have intolerance to certain things like gluten or dairy or soy, until they cut them out completely and then start adding them back in one at a time. So by simplifying your diet back to the basics, you're basically giving your system a clean slate. And then you start reintroducing foods, assuming that you don't plan on staying carnivore forever, and you can easily pinpoint what is working for you, what your body tolerates just fine, and what is sending your body into full-on revolt. And for me, this is honestly, I think, the best argument for going full-on carnivore, at least for a while. If you have been really struggling with chronic health issues and inflammation and food sensitivities, right? And you can't seem to find relief, and you're not losing weight, right? That happens a lot too when you have these food sensitivities, and that keeps your inflammation high, and then it's really hard to actually lose the weight. This might be worth a shot because there could be something in your body and your diet that is your body is not agreeing with, that is keeping you stuck, and going full carnivore for a while could help you break through that weight loss plateau, help you break through whatever it is that's going on, and figure out what it is that your body is not handling well. So that's kind of the third thing, is to just figure out the food allergies and sensitivities part of your diet. And then I think another sort of underrated perk of the carnivore diet for a lot of people is just how simple it can be, right? No more agonizing over meal prep or spending half an hour reading labels to figure out if something fits all the rules that you're trying to adhere to. On carnivore, you do not have to question, is this okay to eat? Because if it comes from an animal, you're golden. Steak, yep. Bacon, yep. Cheese, okay. Unless you're going hardcore dairy-free carnivore, but it's basically giving your brain a permanent vacation from decision fatigue. And grocery shopping becomes super quick. You skip 90% of the store, you head straight for the meat section. You don't have to debate between kale or spinach, right? Your only decision is ribeye or sirloin. And then meal planning is not even important either, because you're just rotating your different cuts of meat and maybe adding some eggs or butter, right? Like, it's so simple, you almost feel like you're cheating at life. It takes away all the decision making. But on the flip side, that simplicity might start to feel a little bit monotonous. If you're at the point where the thought of eating yet another burger patty makes you want to cry, right? Like, it might be a sign that carnivore is not the forever diet for you. But for people who genuinely love meat and don't mind eating sort of the same things over and over, right? Thrive on routine. The simplicity, and that's my sister. So the simplicity can be just a huge stress reliever and just one thing that she doesn't really have to think about. So I would say that's a pretty big benefit. And then the last thing I wanted to talk about real quickly is just weight loss and body composition, right? And you can lose weight on just a regular kind of more moderate approach, and that's what we talk a lot about in our program. But that is definitely one of the biggest reasons people get drawn into carnivore. And it does work, right? And for the same reasons that lowering your carbs and cutting out sugar and getting rid of all the refined crap works. It means your body is starting to burn fat for fuel. You're in ketosis. You're naturally satiated because animal-based foods have a lot of protein. They have a lot of calories. You're less likely to overeat. You can't really binge on that kind of stuff, right? You might be eating more calories, but it doesn't really matter because all the other things are working the way that it should. But it's not, I think one of the perks of carnivore is that it's not always just about the losing weight. A lot of times people on carnivore report major improvements in body composition. They'll, that they didn't start seeing like actual muscle definition until they went super high protein and started eating lots and lots of meat. But it could also possibly be that you're cutting out all the inflammation and that's helping your body composition. So at the end of the day, the carnivore diet is like that one diet out there that sounds completely wild and oddly appealing at the same time. Do you need to go full carnivore to be healthy? I don't think so. In fact, absolutely not. Many people thrive on a much more wide variety diet, right? A balanced diet that includes plants and proteins and healthy fat. But if you are someone who has been struggling with chronic health issues or food sensitivities or plateaus, despite doing all the right things, I think it is worth experimenting with. On the flip side, if you love a variety of food like I do, it might not be the most sustainable option for you long term. The monotony got to me after just a week, but for other people, it might not be a big deal at all, right? So only you will be able to figure that out for yourself. But I do think, and I think it's important to say this, right? The other thing to consider is that being on such a restrictive diet, it can make travel and even sometimes socializing feel a whole lot harder, right? Like I find socializing very easy because the food that I cook, people don't really even notice that it's cutting out sugar or that it's made with alternative sugar or right, like I cook food that just feels normal and it feels delicious and it feels really good. And so if I'm having people over to my house, I still cook the same way. If I'm bringing something to a party, I'm still making something that I know I can eat. But it gets a little harder when the only thing that you eat is meat, and other people want other things, right? And I think for me, that's probably a sacrifice that I'm not always willing to make, is to just giving up all of my flexibility. But I really think that the key for carnivore, as with any lifestyle change, is listening to your body and being flexible. If you try full carnivore and you feel amazing, great, stick with it. If you are a week in and you're dreaming about avocados or chocolate, maybe it's time to adjust to something that feels a little bit more sustainable. The key is not a one and done thing, right? The key is finding something that you can actually live with. And there's really no one size fits all approach when it comes to health and nutrition. It really is about figuring out what works for you. This went a little long. I didn't know I could talk about meat for this long, but I could. But I think that is all I have for you guys today. I hope this deep dive into the carnivore diet was helpful, gave you some food for thought, or maybe I should say some meat to gnaw on. See what I did there? Okay. I'm getting cheesy, so that is my sign to go. But don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you like to listen. And then, of course, be sure to share this episode with anyone you think might enjoy it. And I will see you back here for another new episode very soon.